Gui, a typical introvert who draws adult manga just to scrape by, meets someone far out of his league. But things take an unexpected turn when she, a mentally peculiar girl, refuses to leave. The story begins in an average apartment, where we meet our protagonist, a socially awkward loner no one cares about. After high school, he rented this place because even interacting with his own parents became unbearable. While sketching a manga scene, it's clear he lacks confidence in his art. His life is miserable. He scrounges for coins to pay the 30,000 yen rent for this dingy apartment. Even with a side job, money is tight. Buying a 20,000 yen stove felt like a blessing, but without AC, he's convinced he'll die of heatstroke. He once dreamed of making manga but never gained an audience. Now, he sells cheap adult comics to fellow shut-ins just to survive, though he occasionally draws original work, too. Then he notices 3 downloads of his adult manga this month. A small win. His art is gloomy and unpolished, which is why his original work flopped. Complaining about life is nothing new. He knows he's worthless. Maybe he'll die alone like this. Stepping outside for air, he spots a cloud-shaped light. Poop. He pulls out his old phone to snap a photo for his dead blog. Suddenly, the doorbell rings. He isn't expecting deliveries or behind on bills. When he opens the door, a golden-haired girl in a jacket despite the sweltering heat stares at him with hollow, lifeless eyes. They stand in silence. Is this even a girl? Are you Gasui-sai? She finally asks. Gui freezes. She rummages through her bag and pulls out a notebook. Did you draw this manga? He recognizes the cover, it's his work, but physical copies barely sold. I love your manga, she says flatly. The story, the development, everything. His first fan. And a terrifying one. How did she even find him? She explains. A background detail in one of his blog posts, a window visible in a photo, led her to a nearby supermarket, then to his building. So it's you? Her tone darkens. Gui panics. Her obsession is unsettling. Just admit it, sign whatever, and send her away. Yes, I'm Gasuin, he says firmly. Her face lights up, the eerie aura vanishing. I've read your manga hundreds of times. She gushes. I always wondered what you were like. He thanks her, assuming this is over. But she doesn't move. Do you live far? Gui asks, voice shaky. To Tori, she replies. Gui is left speechless. Tatari is far from where he lives. He asks if she took a train, but she replies that she rode a bus, leaving at 8 o'clock p.m. and arriving at 8 o'clock a.m. A full 12-hour trip. As she mentions her aching back, he nervously asks if there's anything else she wanted to do here. She cuts him off, stating she came solely to meet her favorite author. Mocking himself, he asks if he's really worth traveling so far just to meet a nobody. The girl doesn't answer, she just stares, her gaze so intense it feels like she's piercing his soul. She doesn't blink, doesn't move. With a weak, trembling voice, he asks if she'd like to come inside. Thank you, she exclaims, rushing in without hesitation. Deep down, Gui is wary this is the kind of girl who enters a stranger's home without a second thought. Yet, a small part of him is happy to have female company. Flustered, he stands frozen as she asks if she can remove her jacket. He offers to help. Then he sees it. On her wrist, deep, self-inflicted scars. The kind made by someone who's reached a point where ending everything seems like the only escape. His perspective shifts instantly. Sit wherever you like, he mutters. They sit in heavy silence until the girl finally introduces herself as Saito Mumi. Gui tries to make conversation, but she only responds with quiet yes answers before asking if he's busy drawing manga. He points at his work, his tone firm. If you're a fan, you should know I draw adult manga too. She admits she tried reading that genre but found it uninteresting. The silence lingers. Then, as if it's the most natural thing, she tells him not to mind her and to keep working, after all, it's his job. He tries to salvage his dignity. This is just for pocket change. The mood shifts when she asks a sudden, serious question. Were you bullied? She explains that reading his manga made her feel like the protagonist, like every struggle mirrored her own. She wasn't bullied, she was ignored. A ghost in the classroom. No one noticed if she was there or not. Flipping through the pages, she says bitterly, the protagonist got a happy ending. That's a disgrace. Reality isn't like that. She has no happy moments. And when her life ends, it'll be just as lonely and miserable. Gui remembers the scars on her wrist. I wasn't bullied either, he admits. I was just alone. Sometimes I wondered if I even existed. Their conversation slowly finds footing until she abruptly states she's hungry. They eat ramen together, though Gui remains uneasy under her constant stare. Mumi is 18, a dropout, a girl clinging to life by a thread. Then she says something chilling. Since teachers and students ignored me, I quit school. After a week, I thought about hanging myself right there. Gui sits down to draw, the weight of her words hanging in the air. She stood beside him, watching his every move with unnerving focus. "What's your real name?" she asked, her voice flat. Flushing slightly, he muttered, "Yoko Taku." Mumi's lips curled into a smile as she repeated his name softly, but her eyes remained hollow, pitch black. She seemed to relish saying it, leaning against him as if drawn in by some invisible force. Gui felt a flicker of happiness and dread. "You came all the way to Tokyo," he ventured. "Isn't there anywhere you'd like to visit?" Her reply was icy. "Nowhere. I hate crowded places." "So you're just going to stay here?" His voice trembled. "Won't you get bored? Watching you draw is fun." Her gaze never wavered, studying him like a specimen. A pet. When night fell, Gui checked the time. "I have to deliver newspapers." "Are you going home?" Silence. "Do you know when your bus leaves?" he pressed. Mumi's voice was a whisper. "Should I leave?" It was clear she didn't want to. Gui hesitated. "I thought you had plans." "I don't." Then, with sudden resolve, she said, "I can't go home." Understanding dawned on him. Then, "Wait here. I'll be back. I'll use my phone to kill time," she replied, already settling in. Gui almost laughed at his own luck, his first time spending so long with a girl. "I should message my parents," she added absently, tapping at her screen. As he left, he glanced back at his window. Mumi stood there, waving faintly. For the first time, someone was waiting for him. The deliveries dragged on. The growl of his motorcycle cut through the quiet streets, and by dawn, exhaustion weighed on him. All he wanted was to collapse into bed. But when he looked up, Mumi was still there. Pressed against the window, her face lit up the moment she spotted him. She waved frantically, as if she'd been holding her breath the entire time. "You're back," she breathed when he stepped inside. Gui smiled. "Yeah, You don't need to greet me," she interrupted. He blinked. "Did you at least look around the neighborhood? It's quiet this early." Her expression darkened. "I waited for you. The whole time." His stomach dropped. "You didn't even sit down? You didn't say when you'd return." "I told you 5 a.m. You said 2. A heavy pause. Gui winced. "Sorry." Mumi's eyelids drooped. The hours of standing had drained her. Wordlessly, Gui got up to prepare the futon. He told her he only had one futon, and since her back was hurting, she could take it he'd sleep on the floor with just a blanket. Gui noticed something strange during their conversations. Mumi would only ever respond with a yes or no. She never said things like "I'll think about it" or "What should I do?" It was like she was avoiding any deeper thought or emotion. As they lay there, Gui turned his back to her, trying to avoid the awkwardness. But Mumi just silently stared at him from behind. Even though Gui was shy, he couldn't deny part of him liked the closeness. The next morning, Gui woke up, still sleepy, and glanced over at Mumi. She was sleeping soundly, looking completely peaceful, like someone without a care in the world. He was stunned. How could someone so beautiful be sleeping right next to him? He reached for his phone and noticed a comment on his empty blog. Someone had asked him to do more NTR manga. Thanking them for their support, he decided to get back to work. But then, he noticed a strange smell. It was coming from Mumi's side of the futon. He leaned closer, and froze. Blood. He pulled back the blanket in a panic, and there she was. Mumi had cut herself and was bleeding heavily. Gui panicked, tried to wake her, and she groaned in pain. "What did you do?" he cried, grabbing his phone to call an ambulance. But Mumi stopped him. With a serious face, she said, "This much won't kill me." Still shaking, Gui helped her with some band-aids. As he patched her up, she looked at him and asked quietly, "Did I do something wrong? You've been quiet." Then she told him the truth. The night before, she had felt genuinely happy for the first time in a long time, and that happiness scared her, because she knew it wouldn't last. The moment she fell asleep, she feared she'd wake up to nothing but pain and old memories. So she thought, maybe it would be better to end things while she was still happy. Gui couldn't believe what he was hearing. With a trembling voice, he told her, "I can't imagine someone like you doing something so awful." She simply said, "I'm sorry," then added, "If I ever can't take it anymore, I want to use a blade I'm familiar with." He was stunned. She bowed her head and apologized again. Gui told her it was time to call her family, but she refused, saying they'd just throw her in a hospital. He asked for her phone, he'd handle it. He was still in shock, barely able to process what had just happened. He reached out his hands. She took them. In that moment, Gui realized, he too had once felt so low, so lost, that ending it all seemed like an option. But something small things, moments, reasons had always stopped him. But with Mumi, it was different. She could go through with it, anytime. He looked at her and knew blaming her wouldn't help. Parental advice wouldn't fix this. She was already at the edge. So he stood up and, with a firm voice, told her, "When we go to sleep, we sleep. That's all. Nothing else." She looked scared, but nodded, "Okay, we'll just sleep together." Gui knew from now on, he'd have to watch over her carefully. One wrong move, and she might not be there tomorrow. He started imagining what it must feel like in her shoes: self-hatred, depression, isolation. It was too much. So he took a deep breath and changed the subject. "I'm going to the supermarket. Want to come with me?" They walked side by side, quietly at first. Then Gui said, "Sometimes it's pointless to talk about these things. It's better to take it slow. A small walk helps when you're feeling down." He tried to make her feel at home, pointing out things he liked. "Over there's a pool I love. I swim there all the time, 460 yen per visit. Saves a ton of money." She smiled and said she never learned how to swim. He laughed, "Then you're missing out." She shared a bit too. Her brother enjoys expensive showers, and she brought 30,000 yen just for food. Then she asked, completely seriously, "Do you want to buy a new shower head? I can get it for you." He was stunned. She was ready to give him everything. Awkward silence. He gently reminded her, "Hey, we're here for groceries, remember?" And they continued walking. On their way, they passed a kid playing with a dog. But then the dog ran toward Mumi. And suddenly, she kicked it. Hard. The dog yelped in pain and flew across the pavement. The little girl cried and ran to her mother. Mumi just stood there. Cold expression, not saying a word. Gui was speechless. After shopping, they returned home. The air between them was quiet but not uncomfortable. As soon as they stepped inside, Mumi immediately took off her shoes and began wiping them, almost obsessively. Gui watched her, confused at first, until she suddenly began to speak. She started sharing something deeply personal. I can't stand dogs," she said, her voice distant. "When I was a kid, we had one in the house. It lived inside, in a cage. A big one. Big enough to fit a child." Gui felt a sinking feeling in his stomach. He was starting to understand where this was going. "Whenever I did something wrong," she continued, "even something small, my father, he'd throw me in the cage, lock me in." Her voice was flat, like she had rehearsed it in her head 1,000 times. "I had to crawl in there, on all fours, and the dog would just sit there, watching me, like it had won." Her hands slowed down as she scrubbed the dirt from her shoes, and her eyes stayed fixed on the floor. "The dog would take my place in the house like it mattered more than I did, and I'd be left in that cage, stinking, rotting for days." She paused, then said something that hit Gui hard. "People say humans are above animals, that we have dignity, but in that house, I was beneath the dog." He didn't know what to say. For a few seconds, there was only silence between them. "Do you hate dogs?" he asked softly. "I love them," she said, and the contradiction made her words hurt even more. "I love them. But when they look like they're laughing, when they make that happy face, it makes me sick. And the way they breathe, that sound, I hate it." Gui realized then her hatred wasn't toward the dogs. It was toward the memories they brought with them, the trauma they symbolized, and her parents. They were the root of it all. Do you kick all dogs like that? He asked carefully, referring to the incident earlier. Only if they get too close, she answered bluntly. Then, as if it was a routine confession, she rolled up her pants and showed him a scar on her leg. One time, I kicked a bigger dog. It bit me hard. Left a scar. Still hurts sometimes. She went back to wiping her shoes. He asked if she was done. No, she replied. It needs at least 24 more minutes. Apparently, whenever she kicked a dog, she'd clean her shoes for 45 minutes straight. A ritual. Maybe guilt. Maybe trauma. Or maybe both. Seeing how fixated she was, Gui said he'd go back to work on his manga while she cleaned. He sat down at his desk and tried to focus. Today's project was, ironically, the one thing that was making money lately. NTR. He paused. He wasn't even sure what NTR really meant, so he searched it up. Netarare, he whispered. The feeling of losing your lover to someone else, and somehow, enjoying the pain? He leaned back in his chair. This genre is dark, twisted, and so messed up, he thought. But I need to survive. If this sells, I have no choice. He got to work, drawing panel after panel, losing himself in the lines and ink. Hours passed. Then he felt something. A presence. He turned and there was Mumi, silently standing behind him. He jumped slightly. How long have you been there? About 10 minutes, she replied, completely unfazed. She looked at his screen and smiled softly. Your pen strokes. Your panel layouts. They've improved. A lot better than your older stuff. He blushed a bit and turned back to his desk. She didn't leave. She just stood there, watching. Always watching. You ever gonna work on your original manga again? She asked, tilting her head. He sighed. They don't sell. I barely made any money off those. I'll buy them all, she said simply. He turned and looked at her. The sad reality hit him. Aside from one other anonymous buyer, the only person who ever bought his original work was her. He tried to argue that his new work didn't seem to affect her at all, but she stopped him. It hurts. Being different, she said, really hurts. Her voice cracked, just a little, and something in those words stuck with him. Gui softened. Maybe. There's something you'd enjoy more. He sat her down in front of his computer and opened up a story he'd been working on, something more emotional, less twisted. She read quietly at first, eyes glued to the screen. Then, suddenly, she cursed out loud at one of the characters. Get lost, she shouted, totally immersed. Gui watched her, amazed. She was actually enjoying something. Fully engaged. Then, tears. She cried. And even after she finished, she didn't stop. She started reading it again line by line, and then a third time. By the sixth time, she was shouting at the screen, yelling her thoughts, and eventually leaning on Gui. I'm ready to buy everything, she whispered. Take all my money. I don't care. He chuckled nervously. It'll be out in a week. You'll have to wait. Her expression suddenly shifted. Panic, anxiety, restlessness. A week? She started scratching her head aggressively. I'm gonna go crazy waiting that long. Gui looked at her, truly looked, and realized that even something as small as waiting was hard for her. Painful, even. Her mind never stopped. Not even for a second. And now, it was up to him to keep her grounded. Gui takes a steadying breath, forcing calm into his voice. I might finish before Friday. Mumi's fingers twitch. She closes her eyes, whispering like a mantra. I'll be patient. Just until Friday. Just until Friday. Curious, he nudges the silence. Did you read the other manga I recommended on my blog? I did, she says, voice flat. They were boring. Like they were written by someone else. A pause. Then, quieter. None of them have worlds where people like me exist. Her gaze scrapes over him, judging, dissecting, rejecting anything that doesn't mirror her own brokenness. He swallows and turns back to his work. Was the bus fare expensive? 3,000 yen. She pulls out a tattered healthcare booklet. Half price. Welfare discount. The pages fall open to a diagnosis. Severe mood disorder. The words glare up at him, confirming what he already knew. You can go home anytime, he offers gently. Mumi's smile doesn't reach her eyes. I'm staying. She doesn't ask. She declares.